2 days later, she received another letter. This one slipped under a hotel door unmarked. It contained a single verse written in Arabic and below it a sentence in English. The path you seek lies in the city of light, Taza. Judy understood. Julia was leading her again. Paris. She flew there the next morning. In Paris, the air carried a different kind of silence. Elegant, deceptive, full of ghosts. Judy followed the clues Julia had left behind. A charity name mentioned in the video, an email from a translator, a receipt from a bookstore in the Latin Quarter. Each piece guided her deeper into Julia's unseen journey. At last, she found the bookstore, small, ancient, smelling of dust and forgotten stories. Behind the counter, an old man looked up from his tea. "I'm looking for something," she said. He smiled faintly. "Aren't we all?" She showed him the flash drive. His eyes flickered with recognition. "Ah, the American woman," he murmured. "Yes, she came here. She asked for books on Rumi, Al-Ghazali, in silence, always silence." "Did she say where she was going?" Judy asked. The man poured more tea, thoughtful. "She spoke of Mecca, of returning there. But she said something strange before she left." "What did she say?" He looked up, his voice barely above a whisper. She said, "The truth is not hidden. It's protected." That night, Judy sat on the banks of the Seine, replaying Julia's video over and over. The shadows of passing boats rippled like ghosts across the water. The phrase echoed in her mind, "The truth is not hidden. It's protected." She opened her phone, searching for flights to Saudi Arabia. But before she could book it, an unknown number called her. "Don't," a woman's voice said. "Don't go there. They're watching." "Who is this?" The line went dead. That night, her hotel room door rattled. She froze. No sound, no footsteps, just the faint scrape of metal against metal. Then silence. The next morning, when she opened the door, there was another envelope on the floor. No writing, just the same golden wax seal. Inside was a photo, Julia standing near the Kaaba in Mecca, eyes closed, hands raised. On the back, in her handwriting, "I'm safe. Don't follow me. Just remember what you saw." Judy wept, not from fear, from the unbearable truth that Julia had found something this world couldn't touch, something sacred. She flew back to New York weeks later, haunted and changed. She didn't talk about it, didn't release the second podcast, but she couldn't unsee what she had witnessed or unhear those words. The truth isn't something you find, it's something that finds you. And months passed. Then one morning she received a plain brown package at her home with no sender's name. Inside, another flash drive, this one labeled simply "Stand the End." When she played it, the screen stayed black for a long time before Julius emerged, soft, distant, like an echo from another world. "If you're hearing this, it means I'm gone from the world, you know. But I didn't die, I was reborn. Don't search for me, Judy. Search for yourself. The world is built on noise, but God speaks in silence. That's why so few hear him." A pause, then a faint trembling breath. "I saw things," she whispered. "I saw how faith threatens power, how truth terrifies those who sell illusion. They'll never tell you this. But peace is rebellion, and when you choose it, you become a danger to everything built on lies." Her voice cracked. "Forgive them. They don't know what they fear." And then her last words, trembling through static, "Tell them I found the light." But it wasn't in Hollywood. It was inside. The screen went dark. Judge Judy sat there for hours, unable to move. Outside, snow began to fall, soft and silent. She closed her eyes and whispered a prayer she didn't fully know. In the years that followed, she withdrew from public life. People noticed she smiled differently, quieter, deeper. When asked about Julia Roberts, she never answered. But once, on a rare interview, when a journalist asked if she believed in miracles, Judy looked straight into the camera and said, "I've seen one." The footage of Julia in Mecca was never verified. The letters were never authenticated. Some say it was all fiction, a myth born of grief and faith. But those who knew the truth, those who had seen the light in Julia's eyes, knew better. Somewhere, far from the flashing cameras and the roar of applause, Julia Roberts lived quietly, namelessly. Perhaps in a small village, perhaps near a mosque where dawn broke gently over the mountains. She prayed at sunrise, whispered gratitude at dusk, and disappeared into the rhythm of life itself. And maybe, on certain nights when the world grew silent enough, you could almost hear her voice again. Faint but steady, saying the words that changed everything. The truth isn't something you find, it's something that finds you. Because some stories aren't meant to end, they simply fade into silence, the kind of silence where God still speaks. It had been 8 months since Julia Roberts disappeared from the public eye. No sightings, no press releases, no statements from her team. Hollywood, a machine that thrives on stories, was left restless without one. The media turned her silence into myth. Some said she had joined a secluded religious community in the Middle East. Others whispered of illness or exile. But the truth was quieter and far more unsettling. Judge Judy, who had once stood beside Julia on that fateful podcast, hadn't heard from her either. Not a message, not a word. Only one day, an envelope arrived at her New York home unsigned, sealed with an unfamiliar golden wax imprint, a crescent moon and a single star. Inside was a folded letter written in the delicate, careful handwriting Julia always used when she was afraid of being misunderstood. Judy, it began, "I've found peace, but peace comes with a price. Don't come looking for me, not yet. When you're ready to understand, follow the silence, follow explanation. No return address." Just those words. Judge Judy sat in her study for hours, staring at the letter, hearing Julia's trembling voice in her mind. The truth isn't something you find. It's something that finds you. The city outside her window felt colder that night. The streetlights flickered like fading memories. She poured herself a glass of wine but didn't drink it. Instead, she opened the drawer where the curtain Julia had once gifted her lay untouched. She turned the pages until she found one marked by a delicate rose petal, long dried and fragile. On that page, A verse in English translation read, "Verily, in the remembrance of God do hearts find rest." Her fingers froze. The letters, words follow the silence, echoed in her head, blending with that verse. It wasn't metaphor, it was direction. 3 days later, Judge Judy booked a flight, under a different name, a private ticket to Istanbul. The world thought she was taking a vacation. The world always thinks it knows. The city greeted her with rain, Istanbul, where east meets west, where whispers of prayer rise between the muezzin's calls and the hum of traffic. She checked into a quiet hotel near the Bosphorus, her window facing the water. That night she couldn't sleep. Somewhere in the distance a call to prayer began. It was soft, melodic, haunting. She felt something stir within her, the same thing she saw once flicker in Julia's eyes. She closed her eyes and whispered, "What did you find, Julia?" The next morning, she wandered through the narrow streets of the old city, tracing the alleys that smelled of coffee spice and rain-soaked stone. In one of those alleys, tucked behind an ancient mosque, she noticed a small sign saying, "A Dar al-Nur house of light." Inside, the air was cool and filled with the faint scent of incense. A woman in her 50s greeted her with a gentle nod. Her English was soft, deliberate. "You came because of her." Judge Judy froze. "Excuse me," but the woman smiled faintly. "Julia, you came for her." Jody's heart stopped. "How do you?" "She stayed here." The woman interrupted calmly. "For a while, she prayed here. She asked questions. She cried here." The air thickened between them. The woman led Judy to a small courtyard where sunlight filtered through olive branches. "She left something for you," she said, handing over a small wooden box carved with the same crescent moon and star. Inside the box was a flash drive wrapped in a folded linen cloth. A faint scent of rose lingered on it. Judy held it tightly, her breath shaky. Did she say where she went next? That the woman looked toward the horizon? No. But she said you would. That night back in her hotel. Judy plugged the flash drive into her laptop. The screen flickered to life, a single video file. She pressed play. Julia appeared sitting in a dimly lit room, dressed simply in white, a scarf draped loosely over her hair. Her face was calm, but her eyes were heavy, almost frightened. "Judy," she began, her voice breaking the silence like a confession. "If you're watching this, then I'm gone from where I was. Not dead, not lost, just elsewhere. I need you to understand that what I found isn't a story for the world. It's something that changes you, and once it does, you can't fit back into what you were." As she paused, looking down as if weighing every word. "When I prayed for the first time, really prayed, I felt like time stopped. Like everything I ever loved or feared was being rewritten inside me. But peace," she whispered, "is not always gentle. It strips you. It exposes everything false." Her hands trembled slightly as she continued. "They warned me, Judy, not everyone wants the truth to spread. Hollywood isn't just movies and fame. It's a system built on illusion, protected by silence. When I started asking questions, people changed. Calls stopped being returned. Contracts disappeared. I was followed." "Watch it." Judy leaned forward, her heart pounding. Julia's tone darkened. "There's something bigger. It's not just about religion. It's about control. Faith gives freedom, and freedom terrifies those who build empires on chains." She glanced off camera as if checking if someone was there. "They told me to stop speaking, to go back. But I can't. I won't. The world deserves to know that peace doesn't come from fame or money or applause. It comes from surrender, real surrender." Her lips quivered slightly. "If I disappear, Judy, don't believe what they say. Follow the silence. It will lead you to truth." The screen went black. Judy sat frozen, her pulse hammering in her ears. Outside, thunder rolled over the city. The flash drive ejected itself. Suddenly, the screen flickering to static before cutting out. For a long moment, the room was filled with only the hum of rain and her own uneven breathing. That night, she couldn't shake the feeling that someone was outside her door. A soft shuffle, a distant footstep. She turned off the lights and waited by the window, heart pounding, eyes fixed on the rain. But no one came. It began on a quiet Los Angeles evening, the kind of night where the air feels heavy with secrets. The lights of the city shimmered like whispers across the skyline, but behind one of those glowing windows. Something unexpected was happening. Julia Roberts, the Hollywood icon, sat alone in her study. No cameras, no entourage, no makeup, just silence. Her fingers rested on a worn-out book with Arabic calligraphy on its cover, a Quran given to her years ago on a film set in Morocco. For years, it had gathered dust on a shelf until that night. She turned its pages slowly, the soft sound of paper slicing through the still air. Every verse she read felt like it had been waiting for her, like the words knew her before she knew them. "And we created you in pairs," she read aloud, her voice trembling as if the book itself had begun to speak through her. Something inside her shifted quietly, like a curtain pulling open in a darkened room. Outside, the world knew Julia Roberts, the smile, the fame, the charm. But inside, she was haunted by something deeper. She had seen the emptiness behind luxury, the hollowness behind applause. The more she achieved, the less she felt alive. Fame had built her a palace, but inside it she was alone. And as she sat there staring at the Arabic script, she realized maybe she'd been searching for something that had been calling her all along. Weeks passed. Her team noticed the changes first. The way she spoke softer, listened longer, and seemed lost in thought even during interviews. She stopped attending the usual Hollywood gatherings. Instead, she spent evenings walking barefoot through her garden, whispering prayers she didn't yet understand. She was learning to say Bismillah, in the name of God, before every meal, before every thought. But not everyone understood. Hollywood doesn't welcome quiet transformations. Whispers began, rumors spread. Tabloids called it a spiritual phase, but some close to her felt something different, something they couldn't name. When Judge Judy, her longtime friend and one of the few people who ever saw Julia without her guard, invited her onto her private podcast, the world had no idea what was coming. That night, the studio lights were dimmed. It wasn't the usual fiery Judge Judy. Her tone was softer, almost Julia, she said, leaning closer to the microphone. People say you found something new, something that changed you. Julia took a deep breath. Her eyes glistened, reflecting both fear and peace. Not something new, she whispered. Something eternal. The silence that followed was heavy. Even the producers paused. She continued, her voice breaking slightly. I've been studying Islam, Judy, for years quietly. I used to think faith was a costume, something you wear on Sundays, something you take off when the cameras roll. But this, she pressed her hand over her heart. This never leaves you. Judge Judy didn't interrupt. She just nodded slowly. For the first time, her courtroom authority faded into something softer, something human. Julia spoke about her visit to Indonesia, where she saw Muslims pray in the rain, hands trembling, faces glowing. There was no audience, she said, no performance. Just devotion. I wanted to know that peace. The audience that night was small. But word spread fast. Within hours, clips of Julia's confession hit social media. Some celebrated her honesty, others mocked it. The Hollywood elite whispered that she had lost her mind. But Julia stayed silent. Untouched by the noise, she wasn't seeking applause anymore, only truth. Weeks later, paparazzi caught her leaving a small Islamic center in Los Angeles. She wore a light scarf, her head bowed, the images went viral. Some said she was pretending, others claimed it was a publicity stunt. But if you look closely into her eyes, the same eyes that had once captivated the world, you'd see something different, not fear. Not confusion, just peace. Behind the scenes, Judge Judy faced her own questions. She replayed the podcast over and over, haunted by Julia's words of something eternal. She began reading too, quietly. Away from the public eye, she studied the same book Julia had once touched, tracing her fingers over the Arabic verses, feeling their rhythm like a pulse beneath her skin. In private, Judy called Julia late one night. You said faith never leaves you, she whispered. How do you know? Julia answered softly, because once your heart remembers its source, Judy, it can never forget. For months, no one saw Julia in public. Her social media went silent. Hollywood moved on, as it always does. But then a photo emerged. It wasn't from a red carpet or film set. It was from Mecca, Julia Roberts, wrapped in white, standing among thousands, her hands raised in prayer beneath the night sky. No cameras, no spotlights, just her, and the sound of millions whispering God's name. People didn't want to believe it. They called it edited, fake, impossible. But those who knew her, really knew her, said it made sense. The woman who once chased scripts had finally found her story, and yet the world never heard the rest. Judge Judy never released the full podcast. She said it was too personal, too sacred. But insiders whispered that in the final recording, the part no one ever aired, Julia said something that silenced the entire room. Her voice was calm, steady, filled with a strange, almost prophetic certainty. She said, there's a reason the truth scares people, because once you see it, you can't unsee it. And once you feel God, you can't go back to pretending. Those words lingered, haunting the few who heard them. Months later, Julia's team announced her retreat from acting. No statements, no interviews. Just silence. Some said she had vanished into a private life of devotion far from the cameras. Others said she was working on something, a documentary about faith and truth that would never be released. As for Judge Judy, she never denied what she saw. In a rare, off-record conversation, a producer claimed Judy once whispered, I saw a light in her eyes that night. Not fame, not madness, just truth. And I don't know if I'll ever forget it. And so, Hollywood's smile, the woman who once embodied glamour, became a ghost of grace walking between two worlds. Some say she prays at dawn facing east, whispering words few would expect from an American icon. Maybe the story was buried, maybe it was silence. But somewhere in the quiet corners of faith, Julia's journey still echoes, a reminder that even in the city of illusions, truth finds its way. And those who heard her say it that night still remember the tremor in her voice, the calm in her eyes, and the haunting simplicity of her final words, the truth isn't something you find. It's something that finds you.